Living in New York City comes with a lot of unknowns. It also comes with a lot of expenses. If you've been on any sort of New York City meme account, you will have probably seen accidentally walked out my door and dropped $100. Sometimes it really does feel like that. Just because I am a nosy and curious person myself, I decided to track what I spent in a week living in New York City. I'm 26 years old, I am a barista, and we're gonna talk through everything I spent this week in a week that did not go the way that I thought it was going to. But in that way, honestly, this might be the most realistic what I spent in a week. Some weeks I spend barely any money, and some weeks I spend a lot more money than I expected. Welcome to the world of Cassie. I'm gonna talk you through everything. We're gonna break down each day. I'll give you a total for each day. We'll talk through the total of the week. I'm gonna include my extra expenses, how much my rent, health insurance, everything like that. I know that money can be a controversial topic for some, which makes sense. It's obviously a very charged topic. I am not making this video to give advice or to say that this is what everyone's life or finances look like. I'm sure there are things I could be doing differently, and like I said, not every week looks like this by any means. I'm just a girl, and I think we can learn a lot by hearing other people's experiences. That's the point of my entire channel. I make vlogs, I talk about my feelings, and I talk about things that maybe other people don't always talk about. Let's just get right into it. So like I said, I'm a barista, and Sundays and Mondays are my days off. But for the purposes of this video, I started tracking on a Monday and just went through Sunday, a regular week. Monday, I did not work. I had a doctor's appointment in the morning. Since usually I get my free coffee or matcha at work, sometimes on my days off, I will go out and indulge. On the way to my doctor's appointment, I spent $8.75 on a matcha. I believe the matcha was $5.75 or $6.75, and then I tipped $2 or $3. I generally tip pretty well, especially when I am getting something from a barista as a fellow barista. Then I had a doctor's appointment, got some blood drawn. I do have health insurance, however, every time I see a doctor, I have an $80 copay, so I spent $80 on my doctor's appointment. I always like getting myself a little sweet treat after I go to the doctor, and today was no different. Met a friend and we got some French pastries. I Venmo'd her 20 bucks for the pastries. On the way home from my doctor's appointment, I stopped at Trader Joe's because my boyfriend and I were making dinner that night. We split our grocery costs halfway, so I spent $19.33 on my half of our groceries. And then I took the subway down to his apartment, which is $2.90, making Monday's total $130.98. Already off to an expensive start, everyone. Generally, I do not have doctor's appointments every single week, knock on wood. At least that hasn't been my life since last year when I had a whole health journey with Crohn's disease. Now my battery is dying, so we are back, and it's Tuesday. On Tuesday morning, I took the subway back up to my apartment from my boyfriend's, which was $2.90. Then I spent $2.90 taking the subway to work, and then I spent $2.90 taking the subway home. This is all I did on Tuesday. I just rode the subway. I ate things I already had, and it was only an $8.70 day. Moving on to Wednesday, I took the bus to work in the morning, which is $2.90. You will see commuting cost is a theme in New York City. After work, I spent $2.90 to take the subway downtown for a work meeting, and then I spent $2.90 to take the subway home from my meeting. That afternoon, I had another doctor's appointment, so I spent $2.90 to take the subway across town. Spent $80 at my doctor's appointment, say la vie. And as I already mentioned, I have to get myself a little treat after a doctor's appointment. In this case, I went to trivia with my friend Reed that evening, and I bought us both drinks. So I spent $24.93 at trivia, bringing Wednesday's total to $116.53. So far it's Wednesday, and I've already had 2 days over $100. This is not normal for me. I've already spent $160 on doctor's appointments alone, and the week's not even halfway over. Let's keep going. On Thursday, I took the day off of work. I've been experiencing some nerve pain. You will see a video about it soon. So I didn't make any money this day. I woke up and I wanted coffee, but I didn't have any creamer, so I went and spent cash. I spent $5.01 on some creamer, little treat for myself. Now, in my mind, even though cash gets deducted from my paycheck, it feels like I'm not spending real money. I'm including it because it is, but in my mind, Cash isn't real. I took the subway down to my boyfriend's, $2.90, and I had another doctor's appointment, so I spent $80 more. My after doctor's appointment treat this day was boba, which I bought for both me and my boyfriend. I spent $12.52. I also had some medication that I had to buy after this doctor's appointment, which cost $18.60. Thursday's total was $119.03. The first two doctor's appointments I already had planned, and I was just gonna talk about like how doctor expenses kind of work in this video. The third doctor's appointment and the medication was a surprise to me. I did not expect them to come, but they had to happen because your body takes priority. Friday, I was in a lot of pain, so I didn't do much. I spent $2.90 to take the subway to work, and I spent $2.90 to take the subway home. So that day I spent $5.80. I usually would have a grocery shop throughout the course of a week, but I was eating kind of random stuff. Whenever I'm at my boyfriend's, he usually feeds me, and sometimes he sends me home with food. So I had been eating our leftovers from earlier that week, and I had breakfast stuff here. That's one expense that's not really included here. I keep digressing. On Saturday, I spent the day at home. Usually I would work on Saturdays, but this day I took off work because I was in a lot of pain. The only money I spent was $27 on ramen that evening. Ramen is my go-to comfort meal. This ramen place we went to was just okay though. Not worth the $27 in my opinion. Oh, I also got boba at dinner, so it was ramen and boba. Been in a real boba mood lately. And then on Sunday, my boyfriend and I went for a little walk, and we got coffee, we got a Mexican hot dog, we got some pastries. I just used a $20 bill for everything, so I spent $20 on our morning treats. We went back to his apartment later that day, so I spent $2.90 on the subway, and then he already had a lot of ingredients for the dinner we were having, but I bought us $8.49 worth of chips and avocados, bringing Sunday's total to $31.39. So after all is said and done, my weekly spending for this week was $439.43. I would like to again qualify that 260 of this was just doctor's appointments. That's over half of what I spent this week, just like in daily spending expenses, was just doctor's appointments and meds. This does not factor in what I spend on health insurance every week, which is around $70. My extra expenses that are not just like day-to-day me spending my credit card, including like rent, health insurance, electricity, I've divided into a lump sum for you, and that sum is $404.45, bringing my total spending for the week to $843.88. I also always send $62 into savings. I have an automatic $12 that goes to my high yield savings account and $50 that goes to my IRA. Those are arbitrary numbers that I have chosen. I, at this moment in time, don't have like a specific savings goal or like benchmarks I'm trying to hit. I'm just trying to throw money that I think I can afford to throw at my savings every week. So I have an automatic transfer set up to both of those accounts from my checking account. Expenses plus what I saved, I in total spent $905.88. This for me is a ton of money. For a little bit more context, I make a little over $700 a week after taxes and health insurance has been deducted from my paycheck. So anywhere from $700 to $750, so let's say like $725 on average, is my take-home pay, which means that spending $843.88 is more money than I'm making. I have some weeks where I spend more, some weeks where I spend less. Obviously, I have a savings account. For an hourly employee like myself, I also had to take 2 days off this week, which I haven't gotten my paycheck yet, but my guess is that it's going to be around closer to $500, which means that I spent nearly double what I made for this particular week. Again, it all balances out in the end. Like, I'm not in danger from spending this much money because it was kind of an anomaly. That's a lot of money. Without all of the doctor stuff, I would have spent $645, which is $80 less than what I would have made in the week. I also want to say that the subway cost makes up $34.80. In New York City, the subway and bus system charges you $2.90 every time you pay. But if you're paying with the same card or like tap to pay device every time, every ride after your 12th ride is free. I rode the bus and subway exactly 12 times this week, but if I had ridden it more, the remainder of my rides would have been free because I have already met this 12 ride threshold. While you never pay more than $34.80, let's say $35 on transportation a week, unless you take an Uber, that is still I mean, that's 35 bucks. This week was not what I expected it to be. I did not expect quite this many doctor's appointments. I expected to have a few more like regular going out with friends expenses, things like that. It's not how it shook down. Every week in New York City is pretty different, which is why I said at the beginning of this video that this might be the most realistic depiction of all. You just never know what kinds of random $100 expenses you might have to incur within a week. I'm very grateful that I have spent time and energy and had the ability to save money over the last years of my life. This was more money than I would typically be comfortable spending in a week. I thought about just scrapping this video altogether, but I think it's genuinely really interesting, and hopefully you found it interesting too. There you have it. That's what I spent in a week in New York City as a 26-year-old barista. Is this what you expected? Is this in line with what you think New Yorkers spend on stuff? Is this in line with what you spend on stuff? Part of this is like, I've never been an adult spending adult money in a city other than New York City, so to me this is all like, yeah, pretty normal. The doctor stuff excluded. This is all pretty normal prices to spend on stuff for the most part. Maybe boba costs way less in other places. But thank you for watching. Hopefully that you found this interesting. My battery's dying again, so I'll see you again soon. Okay, bye.